I'm going on a road trip to meet a man who took on ParkingEye, one of the biggest private parking firms in the business. A company that boasts a 90% win rate in court, but not against this guy.
I guess it does help that he happens to be leading human rights lawyer Nick Bowen. Hi, Nick.
Ah, hello.
So, Nick, tell me what happened in your case.
I was driving down the M4. I was tired, so I pulled into a service station, fell asleep, meant to stay there for 10 minutes, woke up 2.5 hours later, and subsequently, some months later, I was bombarded with nasty letters from ParkingEye.
As it was the middle of the night and the car park was empty, Nick says he didn't realise he had to pay for his overstay.
I was exhausted. I may well have had a crash. It's unfair when there's what appears to me to be a compelling public interest in road safety.
Nick's health and safety concerns that tired drivers shouldn't be penalised were the basis of his legal argument against paying ParkingEye's £85 charge. He didn't even appeal that charge, but simply waited for the company to take him to court. But in August, a judge struck out the case after ParkingEye failed to pursue it, and instead it was the firm that had to pay out all of Nick's court costs.
What I've learned from my experience with them is even though they started with great resolve, if you stick with it, they crumble.
The spotlight Nick's placed on questionable charges comes at a time when private parking firms bought more than 1.5 million motorist details from the DVLA to chase drivers for alleged infringements. Some of those motorists who, like Nick, were hit with parking charges for oversleeping at service stations and not paying to park, have asked him for help fighting back.
You've had emails from people like nurses who've been on long shifts, again tired, they're parking up to rest.
The general theme here is that people stop to stay safe.
Hello. Okay.
Another driver to contact Nick is London cabbie Stuart Wilder.
They're out of control. You can't go anywhere without getting a £100 fine.
Like Nick, Stuart got a charge after taking a break from a long drive and oversleeping beyond the free parking limit. He decided to take ParkingEye to court and is awaiting the outcome.
I don't really think they're taking into account the mitigating circumstances. Basically, they're after one thing and one thing alone, which is cash.
In a statement, ParkingEye said tired drivers can rest for 2 hours for free at service station car parks, and if they overstay that 2-hour limit, they can pay for the additional time before leaving, as explained on their signs. ParkingEye added that drivers can challenge charges with the Independent Appeal Service. But it's not just a top human rights lawyer who thinks some parking companies are taking motorists for a ride. In July, the Parking Code of Practice Bill was presented to Parliament, calling for an end to self-regulation of the industry and unfair charges. In the meantime, will the industry at least listen to Nick's concerns?
We're on our way to the group who set standards for the parking industry, the British Parking Association, and as luck would have it, they're actually holding their annual conference right here in London today.
But there's one small problem.
So, Nick, I mean, we were hoping to get our cameras inside today, but they won't let us in.
Well, I don't know what I can say. I just wanted to ask a simple question about being treated really unfairly.
In a statement, the British Parking Association said the private companies managing car parks are doing so on behalf of landowners and applying their rules. But we did manage to convince one of those speaking at today's conference to talk to us. Steve Gooding is director of the RAC Foundation.
I would be much happier if the BPA allowed far more of their customers in. Any good business knows that it's the complaints about your service that tell you where you need to make changes.
So while we're not all legal experts like Nick, it might just be worth fighting your corner against what you think is an unfair charge.
If you think that you are genuinely being treated unfairly, then fight them. It's sort of time for the little man to fight back, really.
Well, Nick from the film joins us now. Now, Nick, obviously, this parking company is a business. They've got to make money, so they're charging by the hour or by the period that you're parking for. So, you know, they're in it to make money.
Well, they are, and it's often very legitimate to charge people, but only when there's a real sensible commercial reason, like in the day, and that's been tested by the courts, and it's been absolutely fair.
Yeah.
But what happened to me was I fell asleep, or well, almost fell asleep on the motorway and stopped, and I thought I was being sensible, and I end up being pursued by debt collectors and parking companies for overstaying when I genuinely had absolutely no idea that there was such a thing as charging at night for sleeping in a safe space.
Right. So you just didn't realise you had to pay for the parking? It wasn't that because they gave you the option, did they not, of paying afterwards?
Well, but but that's only if you get out of the car exhausted and look at the micro type at another sign, and it just wasn't signposted. So the whole thing was a bit of a trap. Right. And I just wasn't prepared to give up when they pursued me.
Well, there is a bill going through Parliament. I mean, nothing to do with you, but what do they hope to achieve then?
Well, what they hope to achieve, there's a hero, or seemed to be a hero MP called, I think, Sir Greg Knight, who's backing a private member's bill, second reading in, I think, February or March, and it's to regulate the whole industry, to try and bring in a statutory code of practice, which will make them behave fairly. Because since this happened to me, I'm flooded with emails all the time, and I'm
You'll
not
have
really...
a few more after tonight.
Well, I'm not. Well, please no. I'm not really a parking lawyer, but I've just found myself. I mean, the one thing that seems to unite the nation is a lack of confidence or distrust in the private parking industry.
Well, this is the thing. You're driving along the motorway. You don't have to drive far before you see one of those signs that say "Take a break."
Exactly,
take a break.
they
I know that a lot of
encourage you.
people do know that you have to pay for parking at certain.
Well, if the system's fair, I mean, obviously you'd be really angry if somebody came and parked on your own drive. You know,
Well, yeah.
it's got to be regulated, but it's got to be regulated fairly, and it isn't, and that's what this bill is going to achieve. But the whole thing is, it's all about money. It's a massive, massive business. The RAC have looked at this. They've crunched the figures. They estimate that now, or coming on for 2019, sorry, on current estimates, there'll be about 10 million data releases from the DVLA.
Right.
The last figures were 4 million. Now 7 million this year, then 10 million. That equates to about £1 billion of income to the price. Those aren't my figures, those are the RAC.
Right.
And the parking companies pay the DVLA for the details of the driver, and that's £2.50 a go. So that's about between 16 and 25 million to the DVLA. So the whole thing is finance driven. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to regulate it to slow it down, because there are 16,000 tickets a day being issued.
Well,
Thank you,
on
Nick.
that note, we'll have to park it there.